Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jacob, and welcome back to Dressed Rehearsal, the podcast where Broadway and fashion take center stage, and we dive deep on the roles that shape us on stage and off. I could not be more excited to welcome today's guest to the podcast. Jenna Bainbridge is an actor, singer, and disability rights advocate who is reshaping what representation on Broadway looks like. In 2024, she made history as the first authentic wheelchair user to play Nessarose in Wicked on Broadway. That same year, she debuted on Broadway in Suffs, becoming the first wheelchair user to originate a role in a new Broadway musical. For anyone who didn't get a chance to see Suffs on Broadway, it is all about women getting the right to vote and the women's suffrage movement. It is now on tour, so it might be coming to a city near you. And to think that this show was in development for years and years and years and just happened to run during the 2024 election, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Beyond the stage, Jenna is the creator of the beloved fashion series Does It Sit?, where she ranks outfits based on how well they actually function in a wheelchair. Equal parts style, humor, and lived experience. She also founded Consultability, a nonprofit dedicated to improving disability representation and accessibility across the arts and entertainment industry. As a passionate advocate, Jenna uses her work in the arts to normalize wheelchair use and expand visibility for disabled artists, proving that style, storytelling, and access are not mutually exclusive. They're essential. Please enjoy today's episode with Jenna Bainbridge. And welcome, Jenna Bainbridge, to the podcast. How are you, Jenna?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here today.
We are so happy to have you. And the first question we start with every guest is, how did you get bit by the theater bug?
I think I was born with it.
Maybe she was
I
born
think
with
it's
it.
genetic. Exactly. Yeah, it's not Maybelline, it's theater.
Hmm.
And because my grandmother, my father's mother had a deep love of theater and was a performer, and she passed away before I was born, but my parents also had this deep love of theater. Neither of them were performers though, but their first date was going to see the Rocky Horror Show when they were
Obsessed.
19 doing study abroad. And so it's just been a huge part of our lives that my parents have always been like, great, we're going to see shows. And, then one thing led to another of my sister wanted to take voice lessons. And then, of course, I wanted to take voice lessons because anything my big sister was doing was the coolest thing I could possibly be doing.
Duh.
And it just kind of like kept spiraling into like, well, I guess this is what I'm pursuing.
It is interesting. I feel like people are always saying, like, oh, younger generations aren't going to go to the theater. And if you don't have those touch points when you're young, like if your family, it's not part of their routine, it does
Hmm.
like affect how likely you are to like integrate it into your life later on. And I feel like you don't realize how much like laying the foundation of just like knowing what it is to go to the theater makes a difference.
Hmm. Yeah, and you get used to like how a theater functions and like theater etiquette is taught. It's easy to teach when you're very young because you're like, oh great, this is how I interact with this art form. And you really value it in a different way. Like if I hadn't seen that tour of Cats when I was 5 years old, would I be in theater today? And like, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's really valuable to capture children's imaginations in theater because then it just becomes part of what they accept of like, this is a wonderful way to experience art and we get used to going to it as opposed to just like, of course it's easy to like just turn on our TV and, watch art from home. And of course we all do that, but it's also nice to like teach that process of like we're making the intentional choice of we are like getting dressed, we are going to the theater, we are going to sit and watch this all together with these other humans. And like, there's something really magical in that.
100%. And I know when you were younger, you were involved in this gorgeous theater company called Family in Denver. And I'd love if you could
Yes.
just tell people a little bit about it because I think it's like this gem that should be everywhere.
100%. Like Family Theater Company is one of the most exciting places on the planet for like me if I'm just talking about like theater companies I love, like Family is top of my list. Family hires entirely actors with disabilities. And so as a little kid with a disability who had never seen myself on stage, it was a really exciting place for me to be like, oh my God, there's adults like me and there's actors like me and this is a place where I can feel safe and held. But it also for audiences it completely subverts their expectations about what it means to have a disability and how stories are told. And so every single show that Family does is multi-layered simply because of the way that they cast their shows. And it's a beautiful place. So if you're in Denver, Colorado, if you're passing through, make sure you look up Family.
I mean, also like how lucky, like what are the odds that you happen to grow up in the backyard of something that's
I
like
know, right?
so rooted in your dreams?
Yeah, well, that was like so much of my childhood. Denver has a robust disability community. So it's also where the National Sports Center for the Disabled is located, is in Winter Park, Colorado. So like when I was a kid and I wanted to ski, there was a place for me to go and for me to
Mm,
like learn how to ski with outriggers and do adaptive sports. Like how great that there was never a question in my mind or in my family's mind of like I could do whatever activities I was interested in, there was a way to do them. There was never a question about that. So for sports, I had so many outlets, and then when I found my love of theater, we were so lucky that Family was right there, and I wish that every community had those same resources available.
And I'm curious when you transitioned into working in theater outside of Family, how you
Mhm.
navigated like knowing to speak up for yourself or just like what that cultural shift even felt like.
Yeah, Family, it's just ingrained in Family that you learn how to advocate for yourself and how to advocate for those around you and how to make space for your disability and your access needs. So that was the first place that I really learned anything about access needs or advocacy or any of these like these terms are just so intricate to my life now.
Mhm.
Um, but at Family, it's just normalized. It's just like, well, of course, we're gonna like talk about what things can change to make this experience more accessible for me.
Mhm.
So when I then went and worked at other theater companies, it was just I really thought I was like, well, this is how you do it. Like, of course, we're gonna on day one during my audition be like, great, and if you have any questions about my access needs, I'm happy to talk about them. Like that just became such a normal part of my
Mhm.
experience that then when I went to other theater companies, I was like, oh, right, no, other places aren't used to this, don't have these conversations, but like I felt so comfortable advocating for myself because of the skills I learned at Family, that it just kind of became a natural extension of who I was. Like I was 12 when I started working at Family. So like it really is just like baked into my experience as an actor that disability is a part of the characters and is a part of the storytelling and is also a really important part of who I am and how I'm going to interact with the stage. So like of course we're going to talk about disability during my audition. It's an important part of who I am, and Family taught me that.
And isn't it so cool to think that not only is it benefiting the people in Denver that work consistently at Family having a place that they can perform, but also you've created all of these like representatives that now are going into the world and know how to operate in that way.
Oh my God, yes.
Then it's like a little, it's almost like a door-to-door salesman of like now you're going to all of these theater companies that you happen to stop at, dropping little words of wisdom and then like keeping that like continuously going.
Yeah, it's like our own little like MLM, right? We're just like we're continuing to like get more people involved. But it
Right.
does. It's like these little ripple effects of these like fingers that come out from Family where everybody is connected in some way. Yeah, it's a magical place. Like Denver's a great theater community. We've got a ton of Denver actors who are now in New York and working on Broadway, working on film TV. But then having that the disability theater company aspect of it, like we are now all over the country and making accessible art everywhere we go.
Which is amazing. And I feel like people these days like are very focused on like the instant gratification of going straight to Broadway, but I feel like you really invested in yourself of like building brick by brick like this regional career. And
Mhm.
so I'm curious how that foundation has served you now that you're in these Broadway spaces.
I'm telling you, regional theater is the lifeblood of the theater
Mhm.
industry. Like every single person should be working in regional theater. Every single person should be attending their regional theaters. Like regional theater is the most exciting place to work because there's not a commercial aspect to it. Like the art in regional theaters is there for the sake of the art. And you learn a lot about what you crave as a performer and what really fulfills you in regional theater in a way that like I just don't think you can do anywhere else. Um, Regional theater trains you to intake a lot of information really quickly. Like you've got really short rehearsal processes a lot of the time, really short runs, and then you're moving on to the next thing. Like you're constantly intaking new information. And that makes you it makes you really aware of your body. It makes you really aware of your instincts. And like, I think that's the best way to hone your craft and your instrument. Like, I don't know, it's like working with a personal trainer or something, doing regional theater. Like it just gets your body and your mind ready for then the machine that is Broadway. Like they're very different approaches to creating art, but they're also very different approaches to maintaining the art. Because like regional theater, most contracts you're looking at like, we're going to run for like 6 weeks. Like that's just the preview process of Broadway, right? And Broadway, like some of these shows, like Wicked's been running for 22 years. And I'm the 22nd person to play that part essentially, right? Like you get plugged in a way that is completely different, but your skills from regional theater have it has made me strong. It has made me able to know what I need to run an 8 show week safely, how to intake new information safely, and how to like make it my own. And I don't know if I would have those same skills if I had jumped straight to Broadway,
Hmm.
but also like Broadway isn't going to be forever. It never is for anybody. And I'm so excited then for like I love regional theater. And when I go back to working in regional theater, I'm going to be pumped to be there because like I love that too.
I also think something interesting about regional is that, okay, a lot of people probably have a day job. So you might have like a lawyer who's also a passionate actor. And the fact that
Hmm.
you're having people where all their eggs aren't just in the performing basket allows
Yeah.
you to be like a well-rounded, because you understand the different experiences more than like when you're in
Hmm.
just a performer bubble, it can be very specific. And I feel like in these conversations, so many people are like, you have to live in order to like act like you've lived that experience.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. Once you're out of touch, like, how are you supposed to be showing the realities of this, like, human that you are portraying if you have no memory of what it's like to feel that way?
when you're surrounded by people that have like so many other things going on, I feel like they
Mhm.
bring that to the performance and it's just more layered and more interesting.
Yeah, and it makes you also appreciate the moments when you do get to just be a performer.
Hmm.
I mean, most of my career, I've had 2 or 3 jobs while also performing. And, it's like a moment to breathe then when you are able to just focus on performance. Like you get to appreciate the art in a different way, but also then like in those times of like stress in between, like you really love that you get to perform. Like I have been stressed and exhausted working a day job, and I've been stressed and exhausted working in theater. But how great that I get to be stressed and exhausted doing the thing I love.
Hmm.
Like I appreciate it so much more, like having gone through all of the ups and downs of like being a working actor and trying to make ends meet.
I also think that you have like this unique awareness of kind of how the machine works. Like I think about your two experiences. You look at Suffs and you look
Hmm.
at Wicked. Suffs,
Yeah.
your Broadway debut, so exciting, so happy to be there, checking off all of like the big events.
Hmm.
But it's a new show that I'm sure you were checking grosses every week, being like, how long is this going to run? Versus
Yeah.
like now being Wicked, it's you're entering a machine, but also you have a comfort of like the stability there. And I'm
Yeah.
curious what your brain shift was with that because it must be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Suffs was the hardest thing I've ever done in
Mhm.
my life. Suffs was, oh my God, it was such a gift. I loved performing that show. I loved telling that story. But it's really hard to get a new musical to Broadway.
Mhm.
So, the years leading up to us being on Broadway, they had been doing workshops for like 10 years before the Broadway debut came. I joined the show in 2021 and we took our first bow on Broadway in 2024. So, that's a long time of like being in workshops and doing our run at the public, and the entire time you're just hoping that like the right person sees it and that they're going to want to produce it in their house. And uh, I had to really focus on like, is this worth it? Is this,
Mm-hmm.
for those 3 years, it was making sure I was available for workshops, making sure that I could be there for the different productions. And my husband was so supportive the whole time. We moved from Denver to New York so I could do Suffs. And I wasn't really able to work in between the different workshops because there wasn't a ton of time in between the different workshops. I was lucky to like I did a couple of other like regional gigs, but for the most part I was like I was unemployed waiting for stuffs to like hopefully make it to Broadway. And I
Right.
really put my eggs in the basket because I believed in Shayna and I believed in the show. But then we get to Broadway and it is the most difficult thing I've ever done because you are rehearsing your show and it's constantly changing. So you're having to remember like what have we changed this week and how do I implement it and like trying to purge the previous versions, which is still hard for me. Like I went and saw the tour of it this weekend in Providence and I still like in my head had forgotten that things had been cut, right? Things that existed at the public 3 years ago are still in my head. And I was like, oh, right, they don't sing that. That's not actually in the show. That's not on the soundtrack, but I still remember it. So you're like trying to like purge those things from your brain and remember the new stuff. And then you're doing like, oh my gosh, previews was like the hardest part of it because then you're rehearsing all day, performing all night, and doing press. You're like trying to get the show open and get people to see it and then you finally open, you're like, yay, okay, great, we made it, we can calm down. Nope, because that's also when like press picks up even more. And then there's awards season and like Good Morning America. And it was the most exciting thing I've ever done. And I've also never been more exhausted. I got so sick the week of the Tony Awards. My body just like, you can only push so hard before your body gets sick. So then joining Wicked was like the complete opposite experience. I had 3 weeks of rehearsal with just rehearsal. I had nothing else. Like I just rehearsed during the day and then I could go home at night for 3 weeks. And then I had two rehearsals on stage with the full company. And then I was in. And there was no like preview process. There was no press. There was no like, we're prepping for our album release or we're, recording during the day. It was just like, oh my gosh, I just get to do the rehearsal part and then I just do the performance part and there's no extra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like so much more chill. And then having like, yeah, you're, as you said before, like the security of knowing like, we're gonna run. Like I know I have this job for a while. I know I can like set aside savings because I'm gonna be here for a minute. And that was just a huge relief after Suffs. We had a really great run. We had 10 months on Broadway, and that was a huge gift. But like we all knew the whole time that like at any moment we could get our closing notice. And there's still a little bit of that at Wicked because like shows close all the time, but you feel a little bit more stable.
Totally. And you even think about like the years that you were involved with stuff. Shayna was writing it for so many years before that. And
Yeah.
I always think back, I might be misquoting this, but Andre DeShields in his Tony speech, I'm pretty sure was like, the top of this mountain is the bottom of the next. And
Uh-huh.
so isn't it cool that like you're in the same business, you're doing another Broadway show, but it's a completely different skill set that you're learning and like
Yeah.
just starting at a new mountain. And yes, the stress is going to change, but you're still in the room making it happen.
Yeah.
And I think a really special part of your track and subs was the fact that your role had so many different jobs. And so
Yes.
the fact that you could embody each one of those jobs was such like a cool moment of representation. And I'm
hmm
curious like what you feel like that as your Broadway debut would mean to little you.
Oh, I needed to see disabled representation when I was a kid. I
Mhm.
really needed it. I think every kid needs to see themselves. And the
And see
cool
other
thing about
people.
Suffs, 100%, yeah. And like it was great for Suffs because like, not only were kids seeing, oh, I could be an actor, but they were also seeing every single one of the jobs I had in stuff. So, like I played a photographer and a journalist, and I played a police officer, and I played a senator. So hopefully, then kids are seeing it and going, "Oh, so I could also be a senator.
Hmm.
I could also be a journalist. Like all of these jobs are available to me." Once we see a version of ourselves in any profession, we think it's possible. So it was really exciting to get to like do all of those different things and wear all of those literal hats during a show. And then also the great thing in Suffs was that I was able to fully embody being an ambulatory wheelchair user. And the way that I interact with the world, I use a wheelchair sometimes and I walk sometimes.
Mhm.
And Lee Silverman was always so excited and great about like, great, how do you want to interpret this character? Like we always had conversations about like what disability my characters had. Even though we weren't talking about it in the script, we knew our own stories and our own like what stories we were telling. So for Suffs, I got to be a fully ambulatory wheelchair user. In some scenes, I was using my wheelchair, and some scenes I was walking. And then even when I went on for my understudy tracks, we did that as well.
Oh,
We
wow.
were able to adapt the tracks so that I could use my wheelchair during a few of the sequences. And that was extra work for everybody. We called it the accommodation track,
Mhm.
where if I was on for Doris, there were scenes where I would do my ensemble blocking in my wheelchair and then return to Doris blocking in the next scene. And everyone was always so great about it. It meant that our swings had to learn an extra track because they had to learn they had to learn the Doris track for certain ensemble sequences because I was doing the Jenna track.
Mm.
Um, but what it meant and what I was really excited about was one, it made it more sustainable for me when I was doing Doris because I was able to use my assistive device and make it an easier process. But two, it showed anytime I was on, it showed the ambulatory wheelchair user experience. It showed that like disability is not stagnant and disability you can use the devices that will serve you in a moment. You can change from moment to moment and you don't have to justify it. You can just use the wheelchair if you need the wheelchair. Sit down if you need to sit down. Use a cane if you need to use a cane. This is how we actually make our lives better. And we got to show that for all of my characters.
Right. And it's a spectrum. Like, that's what I
Mhm.
think people don't realize. And from everything I've heard about the rehearsal process for Suffs, like, it is such an example of like purpose centered and like living
Mhm.
out the mission. And I heard I'm obsessed with Lee Silverman, and I just think that like the way she works is so interesting. And Stephanie J. Block has a podcast, and she was talking about when she was going to do Sunset Boulevard at the Kennedy Center a few years ago.
Mhm.
She talked to Lee about it, and Lee was like, "Why are we doing this? Because if we don't know
Uh-huh.
why, we're not doing it, or at least
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to be the one to do it." And I think that like a lot of times artists are so excited they just want to work, and so it's like,
Uh-huh.
what are we going to do? But to be so intentional with that work is it makes all the difference.
It really does. Yeah. Lee is a very good choice for someone to be obsessed with because my God, she deserves it. She is a genius. She is a visionary. And the thing about Lee is that she also trusts the people around her explicitly.
Mm,
So that was part of that focus, that purpose driven room. It wasn't just we all believe in this show and we all want to tell this story. It was we all believe in each other.
mhm.
And Lee and Shayna and our casting team, everybody did a really beautiful job of bringing people into the room who had that same purpose and believed in each other. So like Lee was not dictating anything of like this is how we're telling the story. Lee was inviting everybody in to bring their skill set and she trusted their skill set enough to say great, like you know what you're doing and we have the same vision for the final product, and that's what made stuff so beautiful.
Right. And the fact that you put your life on hold, moved to New York with the hopes of Suffs.
Mhm.
I've heard Jen Colella say she didn't miss one workshop in like almost
No.
years. And that type of commitment is so true to why it's such an important show.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to like the way how wild it was for you to grow up in like the backyard of family, like how wild it was for Suffs. Like it could have been on Broadway the year before, it could have been on Broadway 3 years before, but to be on
Yeah.
Broadway in an election year
Yeah.
is so wild. And I'm curious how that influenced your show over the 10 months.
So what's funny about Suffs is that like the story of elections and the story of the pandemic are deeply ingrained in the material itself. So Suffs was supposed to do its public debut in 2020, and that was canceled because of the pandemic. So everything got like pushed back, but it meant that a lot of what Shayna had first written was during the 2016 election cycle
Right.
and during, all of that turmoil. So when we then went to the public, I shouldn't have been in it because in 2020, I was working at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I had a year-long contract. I was very happily employed, was very like, I had no dreams of being in New York, no thoughts of being on Broadway. And because of the pandemic, because everything shut down, all of the auditions had moved remotely. So suddenly I was sitting on my couch in Oregon and was like, well, I'm an audition for every dream job I've ever had. Why not? Now's the time. And I happened to send a YouTube video to the public. Like it was that simple in some ways, but they were holding an EPA and they were accepting YouTube videos as auditions. So then when Suffs went to the public, I got a call to be a part of the cast, and that would have never happened had these video auditions not been possible. But then, like once we, there's all of these years and years and years that you're pouring into these shows, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what climate you're going to be entering
Hmm.
when it finally comes to fruition. So when we were at the public in 2021, there was kind of a murmur of like, how great would it be if we could be on Broadway during the next election cycle? Because like this is a story about elections. There are multiple elections during the show. We see President Wilson get elected for the first time and then re-elected. So like, and there's a pandemic during that time too. The flu pandemic was in 1917. Like there's kind of like
It's crazy.
moments where we discuss that. So it was feeling like very much art reflecting history, reflecting modern time. Like it all was interwoven. So it kind of just felt like kismet. It was like, of course, this is the right time to be telling this story on Broadway and to have a larger audience interacting with it. But election night was one of the hardest things that I think any of us had to do was performing both on election night and the following day. Because as I said, we do also have the election of President Wilson in the show. And it's like it's right at the end of Act One. We have to relive an election every single night. And it was a exciting place to be on election night, and then it was a deeply painful place to be the following evening.
And I saw Ragtime the day after the election, which feels like a similar
Uh-huh.
experience. And to think that, like, yes, what a dark moment, but like, what a great reminder that art is something you can pour into as your own form of resistance.
Yeah. And it was beautiful because the audience was right there with us. Like it was that reminder of we still have community. We still have people who believe the same things we do. And there are still people in this world who will fight for what is right.
Hmm.
And we are all in a room together right now. And like that was the reminder that I think we all needed.
Right. And I'm sure it also bonded the cast in such a specific way that like cannot be transferred. And I even saw like the whole Suffs cast came to your Wicked opening night.
Yeah.
And like, what did that support mean to you? Because that's probably feeling like a rock star with all your friends standing there cheering you on.
It was mostly just a sobbing mess. It was I've never felt such love in one place. It was the cast and crew organized a group trip. Like we knew that my opening was about 3 months after Suffs had closed, and so we knew it was coming. And Rachel Sussman, our producer, organized the group tickets for everybody to come. So there were about 50 people between
Unreal.
my Suffs my Suffs crew, and also I had some family and some more friends who were able to come that night. So it was, yeah, 50 people there on my opening for Wicked, which like I've never felt that. I've never had that many people show up in one place other than like my wedding, right?
Sure.
Like where you're like, "Hi, I am inviting you to my wedding."
Yeah.
It felt like that, but they had all taken it upon themselves to like create the celebration, to create the reception. It was really magical, and like the cheer that came out when I entered stage was like I almost started crying on stage
I would have.
because I was like, I could hear my friends, like I could hear their specific voices. I could pick them out and could hear like, oh my God, there's Ali Bonino's voice. I hear her. Like there's Jen Colela's voice. I hear her. There's my husband's voice. I hear him. And my mom and my dad, like I could hear every single voice in this like choir anytime there was a moment for applause. I was like, oh my God, my friends. It magical. I can't describe it. It was magical.
I think I would just start sobbing. And like the fact that this whole community, you had just moved to New York for Suffs like a few years before, and to have built that
Yeah.
community so quickly, like magic.
Yeah, I didn't have any community here when I moved to New York. I had like three or four friends that I'd made over the years of like doing theater,
Right.
we're all moving in and out of New York after the over the years, but that was it. I didn't have a community. And then I entered Suffs and I had so much more than a community. I had a family. I had people that I know I will have in my life for forever.
Which is the luckiest thing in the world to have that as your Broadway
Mhm.
debut. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, we kept we kept joking. All of us debuts and stuff. We're like, so it's all downhill from here, right? Like we're getting the best experience
Right.
first.
Like we are so spoiled.
Yeah, yeah, it was magical. And I will say, like, I was worried then moving over to Wicked because I was like, Suffs was the perfect experience. Like I loved everybody so much. I believed in the story. Oof, like what am I getting into? Like that's over now.
Mhm.
What comes next? And Wicked has been every bit as incredible. Like I love our company. I love the story. So I feel very lucky that I've had two in a row where I've felt just so loved and had such a great community.
And since you were the first authentic wheelchair user to play Nessa, was it a role always on your radar?
As like a kid, Nessa never entered my radar.
Interesting.
Like, yeah, like it's I think that every little theater kid when you're watching a show, like you kind of hone in on a character of like that's who I want to be. And I was zeroed in on Glinda. I
But
was
isn't
like,
that
I want to
cool
be Glinda.
that
Mhm.
like your brain, it didn't have to be binary to what
Yeah.
someone might assume you would be locked in
Mhm.
on?
Well, and especially because like I had never played disabled characters because there aren't any.
Right.
Like as a kid, how was I supposed to zero in on disabled characters? There's like three I could pick from,
Right.
and I'd already done Glass Menagerie, so like I'm okay.
Right.
So like when I saw Wicked, it was just like, well, what part do I want to play? Because that was more often my experience was in regional theater, none of the characters are disabled. So like what part is right for me? And I was super excited about Glinda because I'm a soprano and there aren't a ton of soprano roles on Broadway. So I was super focused on Glinda as a kid. And then even as an adult, like because it had never happened, because there'd never been a disabled actor playing Nessa, I just I hadn't really thought about it.
Mm,
Like until I got an audition for the movie actually. And then I
interesting.
was like, hey, wait a minute. Like I truly just hadn't thought about Wicked in like 10 years because I'd seen it as like a teenager and then just, hadn't seen it again. So it hadn't really entered my consciousness for a while. So I had like an audition for the movie and then was like, wait a minute. Like, yeah, I want to be Nessa. Like this is a great part and I do identify with her so strongly. And she is an ambulatory wheelchair user. She's a wheelchair user and she walks at some points. So, like, this is kind of perfect symbiotic storytelling. And then I started campaigning hard with my manager. I was like, I want to be seen for Broadway. And so within like a week of me telling her, like, hey, could I be seen for Wicked on Broadway? She had an appointment for me. I went in for my first audition. And I really was just so focused on it. I was like manifesting it the whole audition process of like, no, I know I'm the right person for this character in this moment. And I want to prove that to other people. And I was just so excited that I had that opportunity and that it all ended up working out.
And speaking of the movie, you got to meet Cecily Collette, Little Nessa,
Yes,
who that
yes.
diva, the amount of facial expressions that she gives the world,
She is a presence. Like
I'm sure.
Cecily is magnetic. She enters a room and she knows all eyes on me. Like she is adorable and just a sweetheart. And it's also just so exciting for me to like see all of all of what she's doing, like red carpet experiences and
Mhm.
press. Like Oh my God, that would have been, I think about like myself as a kid. If I had seen someone like Cecily, she would have been like my idol as a child. She's still my idol now. Like, oh my
Right.
gosh, I'm obsessed with her. She's the coolest kid. And like, I just love, she just owns every red carpet she's on. She's going to all these like movie debuts right now. And I'm obsessed with her.
I love her. And then there's a little girl that like does interviews on the red carpet. I don't know if you've seen her. She's a slick back bun everywhere she goes. And she like had,
Yes.
and I'm like, these girls have no imposter syndrome. They have no
No.
like they know they were meant to be there and they're standing in it and they
Yes.
won't let anyone make them feel small. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we all
Yeah.
are missing.
Everybody can learn from that. Like, just
Truly.
that complete ownership of like, no, I belong here and I'm enjoying my time.
And I
I
don't
love
have
it.
to ask to be here. Like I'm here.
I
Thank you.
belong.
Right.
Yeah, they're so
And
cute.
for you over the course of this year being in Wicked, how has like your relationship to Nessa evolved? Do you feel like protective over her? Do you feel like you know her so differently now?
I mean, I feel like I know her. I feel like I understand her. Nessa makes very, very, very different decisions from something I would make, but I completely understand her. I understand her motivations and her reasoning. She goes off the deep end because she just doesn't see other options. And that's a scary feeling to feel like you're backed into a corner. So I get her. I love her. I wish that she had people who loved her in the same way and
Mm,
would have like taught her how to, just make better choices. But she needed that I feel like she needed that from a young age. I feel like, when we meet Nessa, she's already an adult. Like
right.
she's going to college. So anyway, I love her deeply, but I also acknowledge that she makes some problematic decisions.
And okay, not to bring it back to ragtime again, but I think it's almost a similar thought process for like you look at Cole House Walker and like the decisions that he makes like lead him to make bad decisions in the end, probably. But it's like when you understand what pushed these people, like the utter frustration with the way the world is treating them, to get
Hmm.
to that point of just like, okay,
Hmm.
whatever. It it deepens
Yeah.
it so much more, and it's not the face value like villain or like protagonist that people think it is.
No. And in fact, like I don't really feel like there's such thing as a villain
Right.
for like especially if I'm playing a character, like they are not good, they are not evil, they are
They're
human. They
human.
are
Yep.
experiencing this. So like when I'm playing Nessa, I don't think of I don't have any like opinions on what she is doing when I am on stage. When I leave stage, sure. But like when you're in it, you're just thinking about the reactions and immediate sometimes we don't have the best reactions. Like humans are fallible and they're not villains. They're just trying to get through. And like how can you blame anybody for just trying to get through?
Truly. And I've also heard you talk a lot about accessibility being one thing, but equity being another. And I know in
Mhm.
Suffs, they built you a dressing room, but at Wicked, they kind of like moved things around. You've spoken about how like having someone else in your dressing room feels equitable. That feels like the community that you would get if you weren't in the disabled community. And so,
Mhm.
how has having that community in Wicked, especially because you guys mostly all started around the same time?
Yeah, so our principals, we had
Right,
five
came in
principals who
together.
joined at the same time. Yeah, we got to like rehearse together, build the show together, debut together. We've got a great little community and friendship between us all, which has been lovely.
And then having your own dressing room pod, like what that did for entering such a long running show. Without having little pockets of people, something like a huge cast like Wicked could seem a little overwhelming to just like jump into.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that like this idea of what Wicked has done, I think proves that any show can become accessible and
Mm,
can become equitable because Wicked wasn't built with accessibility in mind. And Suffs was, right? Suffs, they knew from the beginning that when we got the music box theater, they knew they would have to retrofit things to make it accessible for me. Wicked didn't think about that 22 years ago. So it's a true testament to any show can become accessible with the right mindset and the right conversations. And now being in the show, like I have made some incredible friends. I I love my dressing room situation. It's like peak. I share a dressing room with the standbys for Elphaba and Glinda. So we've had some changeover throughout the year of like who's in those tracks. So I just keep getting to meet new incredible people. But like it was perfect because I had the company that I came in with,
Hmm.
and like Danny Quadrino and I have become like incredibly good friends, and our tracks are like mirrors, right? He plays Bach, so we spend most of our time together. And he had been a part of Wicked for like 10 years. He is part of the ensemble 10 years ago and left for a while and then came back as Bach. So like he knew a lot of the ins and outs of like the building and the resources, like who can we talk to for like if I have a question.
Right.
And then coming into my dressing room, both of the standbys had already been there. So there was additional people there who could like help me get used to the building and get used to like just even learning names, because entering a building like Wicked, there's like suddenly 200 people that you meet and you
Yep.
have to know you want to learn everyone's names quickly, but like it's impossible sometimes. So it was great because anytime anybody walked in, I could like look to our standbys and be like, what's their name?
Who is that?
Yeah, and like
Right.
they knew, right? So it was like kind of the perfect blend of I had people who were coming in with me who knew the experience of like, being the new kid in town,
Right.
but also immediately had like, it felt like having a lunch table where you're like, all right, now
Yes.
I know where I sit for lunch. I know who I can talk to and like ask for help at the new kid in school. So it was kind of the perfect blend of, you know, incoming people and long-term residents. But I love my dressing room, and like getting to meet new people has been just the best part. Like new people come in all the time to Wicked, and Wicked has this long history too of like you never really leave. So we also have people who come back who are like, "Oh yeah, I was in the company 10 years ago or 15 years ago." And you're like, "This is amazing." Like people
Yep.
are just always cycling in and out, and you get to meet so many incredible, talented humans.
And it's just comforting to kind of know how your puzzle piece fits into the greater landscape. And you
Hmm.
also started this epic series called Does It Sit? And I'd love for you to kind of
Hmm.
explain like where that idea came from.
Yeah, so like it really was the beginning of Wicked. And Danny and I were talking about like people who post like a daily outfit picture.
Mhm.
And I was like, I just don't know how I would do it because like I don't use my wheelchair in my house. And I was like, I want to post an outfit picture, but like I want to show people like that I both sit and stand and that that's like part of my experience. And like
Mhm.
I don't really know how to do that. And he was like, well, that's what you do. Like, just show them the picture of you standing and show them a picture of you seated. And like, that's the idea. And it just kind of has evolved from there. But like, it's also been a huge thing every time I've had like costume fittings or I've gone to events, like trying to find clothing that was built with sitting down in mind is
Mhm.
actually remarkably hard. Like, there's adaptive fashion, and adaptive fashion is like it has been designed in a way that like is meant to be accessible. But adaptive fashion also isn't terribly fashionable sometimes,
Right.
right? It's like functional, but like I don't really want to be functional on a red carpet. I want to like be fashionable on a red carpet. Nobody's outfit is functional on a red carpet.
Right.
So like, but you want to look good. And it's incredible how few clothes are designed thinking about sitting down when
Right.
every single human sits down.
Well, you
Like,
look at people
people,
going to the Met Gala, they're in vans
yes,
standing up from the hotel to the red carpet
yes,
because they're not going to sit the entire
they
night.
can't sit. And like that is not, I mean, granted, I have a disability, so like that's just never going to be an option for me. But
Right.
like, I don't think anybody really wants to stand in 4-inch heels and a corset for a
Yeah.
5-hour long evening. Like that doesn't sound pleasant. So like I started thinking about, well, what if some of those outfits did sit down? What if a wheelchair
Mhm.
user wore that outfit? How would it function? And it's evolved into this whole series where like I love to look at red carpets. I really love reunion shows because reunion
Oh,
shows prove this point.
yes. Housewives can never sit in their dresses, and it's usually
No,
horrible. And I'm like, girls, you knew you were going to be sitting
you
on set.
knew you were going to be sitting on a couch. People don't think about it because like fitting rooms don't have a place to sit down most
Right.
of the time. So like you try on your dress, you do your whole fitting standing, you do all your tailoring standing, and then you get to the reunion show and they're like, "Oh crap, I have to sit down." And half of these outfits look atrocious seated. And then like add to that, what if you also had wheels? Like
Hmm.
what outfit is actually going to function for you to have like independence. I love analyzing it because like everyone's going to sit, but also a lot of people on this planet are going to use a wheelchair at some point during their life.
Right.
Whether that's temporary or permanent is a different question, but wouldn't it be nice if fashion kept that in mind, kept sitting in mind? Shouldn't we see seated models when we're shopping for our clothes? Like,
Hmm.
it'd be really nice to know what's this going to look like when I sit down.
Well, especially when people are online shopping and
Yes.
when you're trying to look through, if you have no concept of what it's actually going to be like.
Yeah. If you're going to work in an office,
Right.
right? Like of course, you're like, oh, yeah, this is what I'm going to look when I'm walking down the street, but you're going to be sitting in that all day. Like, how's it going to look? Are you happy with it?
Yep.
Like,
I've noticed,
comfortable?
and it never is. It never
Never.
is. And I've noticed that you wear a lot of like vintage pieces. I've even seen like you've worn your mom's pieces. And is
Hmm.
there something that you found that you're like, oh, this is a piece that was meant to find me, or like I feel so Jenna when I wear this?
I love thrifting
Me too.
because of exactly that experience. Like,
Hmm.
one, I love thrifting because I just find it to be a more sustainable option. I find it, both for the planet and also for my personal finances. Like, thrifting is where it's at. So I do a lot of secondhand shopping, and I love like Poshmark, eBay. Like, I
Obsessed.
love searching for things. Yeah. And like over the years, I've definitely found those pieces that just like, oh, this screams me.
Hmm.
And then once you kind of know what works for you, then you like plug those keywords in on Poshmark and you're like, okay, great. What else like meets this basic criteria? But some of my favorite pieces, I have a sweater that a friend of mine gave me that their grandmother had hand knit
Oh my
and
God.
given them as a child. And they just, over the years were like, I'm cleaning out my closet. Like, I don't wear this anymore, but I want somebody who like really appreciates it to have it. And I wear it all the time. It is like a staple in my wardrobe. It is this like green fisherman sweater that like it just I needed it. It belonged in my life. Like I'm
Mhm.
so happy to have this piece. Um so like that's definitely one. I've got some of my grandmother's clothing. I have her going away dress from her wedding,
Oh my God.
and it has served me for years. I wore it in like my high school choir concerts because we had to wear a little black dress for high school
Hmm.
choir, and like I wore my grandmother's dress. And what's wild about it is it sits. It still totally works for like my life now.
Right.
I've worn it to events like even recently. It still fits, and it is a perfect seated piece. Like I feel like a lot of the vintage pieces that I found over the years, have like flared skirts, or like the waistline is at a weird spot. It's not very comfortable when you sit down. This one is like the perfect dress for every occasion. And it's like worked for me no matter where I've been in my life. And I'm so grateful to have it and that my grandmother gave it to me. I'm so, so happy that it's in my closet. I'm gonna wear it like I've had plans for wearing it for a concert, in the near future. So I'm like, great, this is just gonna keep getting worn. It's gonna be like my most photographed dress.
But even just like have her energy with you as like an added layer to it, how special it
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
I feel like everyone has a very different relationship with shopping, thrifting, whatever it may be. It can be like very vulnerable because the world sells clothes for a very specific model. And
Mhm.
for you, has it always been like a fun outlet, or was it frustrating to find things that were good for sitting as well?
It's been a lot of trial and error.
Mm,
I'll say that. And
totally.
like sometimes I would learn that something didn't sit because of like a photo that I saw, or like it would be pointed out to me like, "Oh, hey, you've got like tire marks on your jacket there." And like, it just feels like frustrating. Those moments where you're like, "Oh my God, my clothes just aren't working for me." And I think that everybody has that experience.
Yes.
Like no two bodies are exactly the same. So the fit model that they're using for clothing might not work for your body. And it's part of why I love thrifting though, is that like those sizing, like you're not dealing with, here's our fall line, and we used the same models for everybody, and we're using the same basic silhouettes for every single thing. Like you're not dealing with that.
Right.
You are going to a thrift store where there's like a million different sizing models that were used. And some of it has been tailored to somebody's specific body, or something has been like hand built for somebody. Like I think you're far more likely to find things that really work for you because you're no longer constrained by like what's quote unquote in this season. And, all of the caveats that go along with that, because what's in this season is not just here's the colors we're using in our fall line, but it can also be like, here's the measurements we're using. And I find that very constraining because I don't, I don't fit the mold. I don't fit what they're putting out. And so, like, I don't even want to face that. Like, maybe not face it, but I don't want to deal with that. Like, I would rather have the creativity of going to a thrift store and like exploring everything.
It also feels like when you're thrifting, if anyone has ever hung up on like a number, a size, anything like that, like thrifting, like all of that's thrown out the window because I have no concept of size when I'm in there. I'm just trying on what looks good to me because if it doesn't fit you in
Hmm.
that size, there's no other option. So you might as
Right.
well just like go for it and see whatever works and not get hung up on those like societal details, I guess.
100%. Wear what you like. Don't
Hmm.
worry about the number. Don't worry about anything else. Like wear what makes you happy, wear what makes you feel empowered. Like numbers have changed over the years too. Like we've
Hmm.
all seen this. Like, I have a pair of pants from high school that like still fit, but the number on them is super different from what I would be buying in that same store today
Of course.
because like the numbers have shifted. So I don't really care about the number anymore. I care about like, do I like this piece? Does this piece make me feel good? And like half the time you should really get it tailored anyway.
Yeah,
So like, wear what you like and then make it work for your body, not the other way around.
exactly. And you wore this gorgeous white sequin jumpsuit for Suffs opening night. And I
Yeah.
just wanted to know like what your inspiration was, how you put together that look.
That one, so for Suffs, there's a march where everybody wears white for the march.
Hmm.
Like this was an iconic, the Women's March of 1913. 1913? I think it's 1913. But the Women's March in Washington, D.C. is like an iconic moment in history where every single person who came to protest was wearing all white. So a lot of us for opening for Suffs were like, We need to wear all white."
Yep.
Like not everybody, of course, but like there was definitely a theme of we all tried to look like the suffrage flag, which is purple, gold, and white. Um, so I don't particularly gravitate towards yellow and gold. They're not my
Mhm.
colors.
Okay.
So I was like, great, my choices are purple and white, and purple weirdly didn't have a lot of options. Like most of the things I was seeing were like lavenders, and that's also not my color. I'm much more of like a like jewel tone girl.
Sure.
Um, so I was like, great, I'm looking for white. I, as we kind of talked about before, I didn't know if Suffs was going to run, so I didn't want to spend very much money.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't going to hire a stylist. I wasn't going to buy an expensive outfit. I was like, what can I get for like the smallest amount of dollars. And I thrifted that. I was like searching
Wow.
online, and I really was just searching for like things that I knew would sit well. So I didn't know what I was looking for necessarily.
Hmm.
But my parameters was I was on Poshmark and I just searched for like white evening. I think was the keyword
Hmm.
that I used was like evening. And then I just started like liking things that I thought would work. And I tend to look for things that have a higher waistline because they just tend to look better and be more comfortable when you're sitting. And I wanted something that had a little bit of like sparkle or glamour to it just because like that felt fun for the evening. And that jumpsuit popped out. I don't even remember where it's from, but I found it secondhand, and luckily my mother is very good at tailoring things, so she helped me
Nice.
quickly to like hem it and make sure it fit properly. But it was it was just it happened to find me, I think was the better answer.
But you see, when you know your colors, when you know what silhouettes work for you, it makes
Yeah.
it so much easier.
Yeah. I mean, I only looked for like a day. Like I was able to know what colors I was looking for, what
Right.
silhouettes I was looking for, and then you can really easily go through all of the gunk. And also if you trust like, and I can make it fit me. Like
Mhm.
that's a big thing. So like I tend to, if I'm buying online, I tend to order things like a little bit bigger than I think I would.
Mhm.
so that I can tailor it to me. I can take it in. And like knowing that you can do that and do that quickly opens up so many more possibilities. But like I knew what color I wanted, I knew what fabrics I liked, and suddenly the whole world was open to me.
Totally. And from doing all of these red carpet roundups, are there any stars that you've noticed that you're like, oh, that's a closet I want to raid, or like they're so my speed?
Oh my gosh, what's her name? Monica Barbaro
Okay, Monica.
has my like every single outfit she has on a red carpet. I'm like, oh my God, I love that. I feel like most of her fashion is very like clean,
Mm.
polished, tailored. I would raid her closet in a heartbeat. I love her clothes. Who are some of my other ones that I love? I I tend to always want to see what like Doja Cat is wearing.
Love.
I feel like there's always going to be like a strong choice, and I love that. And then I love like Coleman Domingo wears a lot of like just really clean, and he like always takes something really clean and adds like pizzazz to it,
The
and
way
I'm
I love that
always
man,
excited.
the way I love him, I
Love him.
cannot recommend his movie Sing Sing enough. It like changed my life.
It's yes,
It sobbing, sobbing.
yes.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, it's basically about this arts program that's in the Sing Sing prison and how the arts can completely transform someone's life. And almost all the actors besides Coleman were formerly incarcerated and
Yeah,
like either participated in that program. I could talk about this movie for hours, but like
yeah.
he just gets fashion. I'm obsessed with him. And someone asked him recently on a red carpet, like, who do you think's killing it like every single time? He goes, honestly, me.
Yeah, agreed.
Like
100%.
I'm
Like,
with
and
you.
when you know,
Uh,
right? Like he knows he's got swag, and I'm here for it.
And the fact that him and Anna Wintour go on dates to the theater, like, let's get a third and fourth seat because I would love to just sit there with them.
Yeah. Anna Wintour came to Suffs when we were at the public,
Mm-hmm.
and she sat wearing her sunglasses the entire show. I was like, she knows her look, and
But I
she is true to it.
but I will say she loves theater.
She loves theater. She comes to so much theater. Yeah, she's always looking for art inspiration, and you got to respect that.
100%. And then this question is so fun, I feel like to dream. But if you could only wear clothes from one Broadway show's costume department, doesn't have to be currently running, which show are you picking?
Oh my God. Oh, I love this. The first thing that popped into my head weirdly was Annie. Um,
Sure.
because like I love like the 1930s, like especially like Grace's outfits in
Yeah.
Annie. Like I could wear that style of clothing forever.
We're not dressing like an orphan.
Similarly, no. I'm dressing like Daddy Warbucks
Glam.
is,
Yeah.
you know, I've got some money behind it.
It's
And
easy
also
street.
like exactly like I could wear any Miss Hannigan stuff is always like fun. So that's probably not the most exciting answer. I like that era of fashion. You know, so I think I'm gonna go with like Some Like It Hot. I think that Some Like It Hot had like absolutely
Love.
fantastic costumes, and everything was beautiful. And then you've got like the full spectrum of like there's kind of more like, you know, modest, we're just on the train clothes, and then there's like big va va voom, we're gonna do a big show.
Yes, love.
Yeah.
And we had Jay Harrison G on the pod, and they were talking about like
Yes.
the look that they put together for the Tonys. Oh my God. The way that they can play with like masculine, feminine, silhouette, everything. I'm like,
Yes.
your brain is a
They
wonderland.
are always so well dressed, and like their
Impeccable.
co yes, and their clothing is always so colorful and like
I
full of
know.
personality, and
I know.
I love their command of fashion and the way that it like shows their personality.
And they're a thrifter. They were talking about when they worked at like Disney in Tokyo, and that's where they would find all the best like thrifting finds because
Yes.
in Tokyo. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, so that's how I have to dress if I'm going to be dressing as cool as you. I just need to go to Tokyo, of
Just
course.
of course, just go to Tokyo. Super easy.
Yeah, just a hop, skip, and a jump. No, no problem.
Yeah, just like bring a spare suitcase, fill it up,
I
come
mean,
on back.
that's the way to do it.
I mean, I still think that whole trip would be cheaper than trying to like get a capsule wardrobe in New York City.
And I think you're right.
She's like, fly to Tokyo, go thrifting.
Yeah, what a life we live. Well,
Right? Yeah, certainly not something I'm going to be able to afford.
right. And I don't know who will, but none of our business really.
No, but hopefully we will book something, we'll book shows that are in Tokyo and just be able to,
That's how you
shop while
gain,
we're there.
I mean, that's how you
Yeah.
gain the system. If I
Yeah.
was ever an actor on tour, I think the most exciting part for me would be getting to like go shopping in every single tour stop.
Oh my God, I loved doing that.
Yeah.
That was like I did school tours for Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So we were just like
Okay.
kind of up and down the West Coast. And it was every single town we went into, I was like, great, I'm going to a thrift store.
Yep.
So I'll see you later. And like I found the most beautiful pieces just, in the middle of nowhere in Oregon.
Right.
Like found these like beautiful old sweaters and like jeans that were like really well broken in and like work boots that were like, just that perfect vintage find for, like $10.
Right. Because in New York, everything is like so sifted through at this point that I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone stop having good taste so that I can find these things. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no,
wow.
it's always fun when you like go somewhere else and you're like, great, let's go check out the thrift store here.
Mm-hmm.
See what they've got. See what this community has put into their thrift stores over the years.
100%. And this has been such a delight. But the last question we ask every guest is, what do you hope is your signature stamp on the industry?
I hope that I leave every room more accessible than I found it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that accessibility is not just like a physical idea, it is also a mindset. So I hope that everywhere I go, people start to think a little bit more about how can we be more accessible? How can we be more inclusive? How can we make this industry more accessible? But also how can we make this city more accessible, the clothes we wear more accessible? I just hope that it changes people's mindset of what access and inclusion really means.
And I think you're doing just that. Well, thank
Oh,
you
thank you.
so much, Jenna. This has been a joy.
Yeah, this has been so wonderful. Thanks for having me, Mackenzie. This was so much fun.